We've had a lot of fun speculating and talking about what the future of the Mac line is, but because we've talked so much about the Mac lately, we've kind of forgotten that there's these weird kind of glass rectangle things in our pockets, and I guess Apple wants to make more of these things, whatever they are. So in today's video, we're kind of recapping all of the rumors and leaks surrounding the next generation glass rectangles and talking about what you should be excited for, but more importantly, what you shouldn't be excited for. Let's begin. 9to5Mac sources who have proven in recent history to at least be somewhat reputable. They came forward first with the whole Mac Studio and Studio Display naming scheme. They're reaffirming what we've heard from Ming-Chi Kuo in the past, which is that Apple is planning 4 different iPhones to launch in September, but between 4 different iPhones, only 2 screen sizes. So yes, unfortunately, due to poor sales and kind of weak demand for the mini iPhone, it sounds like 2022 is the year Apple stops making the mini series, which bums me out insanely because I love the 12 mini and the brief interactions I've had with the 13 mini were incredibly positive. I don't want this to happen. I'm just reporting the news to you guys. Apple is basically thinking of replacing the mini line with the exact opposite, the Max line, which is boring and somewhat unoriginal because that's kind of what we've seen Android already done. Bigger and bigger and bigger screens, even if those screens have creases and are made of plastic, we just have to have the biggest screen possible in our pocket, which means, unfortunately, to those of you out there who are a big fan of having smaller, more compact phones that you can take with you, this won't really be the year for you. So you're gonna have 2 6.1-inch iPhones, a Pro and a regular, and 2 Max iPhones, a Pro and a regular. Now this new trim, the 14 Max, I'm referring to it as. I don't know if that's the official name for it. It just makes the most amount of sense in my book. You're just taking the Pro out of Pro Max. Sounds good. I think this is going to be the bread and butter of the iPhone 14 lineup because never before has it actually been possible to get like a 6.5 or in this case 6.7-inch iPhone display for under $1,000. And no one has really come forward with pricing estimates yet, so maybe if inflation gets worse and worse, prices could go up. But because Apple typically keeps around a $100 price difference between all their different screen sizes, you know, the Pro iPhone, $1,000, the Pro Max, $1,100, and then with the 13, it was $800, 13 mini, $700. I expected that since Apple was going upwards with the 14 Max, this would start at about $900. But of course, you don't want it to sell so insanely well that it cannibalizes the Pro Max line, so Ming-Chi Kuo more recently has detailed how exactly Apple is going to differentiate these 2 iPhones, and we've also heard some updates from Ross Young as far as the display panels go. So first of all, Ming-Chi Kuo is suggesting that Apple is doing something a bit weird, something they've never done before with the iPhone lineup, and only introducing the A16 chip to the Pro options. So yeah, Apple's always pretty much every single year introduced a new A series of chips. Ever since the early days of the iPhone, they've gotten new silicon ready that's more efficient, that's built on a better architecture, that has faster cores, better neural engines, and typically miraculously allows for certain software features to be unlocked, like cinematic mode or Face ID with a mask, which doesn't work with the iPhone 11 or older series, but does somehow work with the iPhone 12 and newer series. I don't know how it works, but Apple is rumored to keep using the A15 chip on the iPhone 14 and 14 Max, basically the sub $1,000 iPhones with the aluminum chassis in the non-frosted glass. But at the same time, it's at least rumored to be the best version of the A15 chip because Kuo has detailed that he expects 6 gigabytes of RAM to be standard across the entire lineup, which does mean, yes, that they're going to use the same higher-end A15 chips that they put in the 13 Pros last year. So you're still getting a boost in graphics. It should have 5 GPU cores instead of 4, and you're getting 6 gigs of RAM instead of 4. So an improvement, but it's interesting because in the past, Apple has never really differentiated different iPhones in the lineup by their silicon. Typically, they give all the iPhones the A11 or the A12 chip, even if it's the cheaper one. Even the iPhone SE now with 5G has the A15 chip. So maybe this has something to do with suppliers or the chip shortage or TSMC not being able to build silicon at a high enough yield. I also think it's possible that Apple Silicon has just gotten so insanely fast that the only use cases or the only benefits to offering a faster than the A15 chip, like an A16, is for more higher end Pro camera features that are really only going to be useful on the Pro iPhones, and Apple doesn't really need to give more Pro camera features to the non-Pro iPhones because now there's a 14 Max option. They don't want too many people opting for that one and feeling like the Pro iPhones aren't worth it anymore. The big biggest difference from the front you'll notice between these two options is that Ross Young, who's proven to be a fairly reputable supply chain analyst, is suggesting that that eye-hole display, basically two hole-punch camera cutouts on the front for Face ID, one of which is like a pill, one of which is just a circle. Some people don't really like the look of it. We've seen some other renderings showcasing that this camera cutout is going to be quite massive and kind of obnoxious looking. Regardless, that notchless iPhone design is only going to be on the Pro options. Ross Young is also saying just the Pros are going to have 120 Hz ProMotion, which yes means unfortunately the 14 and 14 Max once again are going to be rocking 60 Hz OLED displays that are not LTPO, which is a bit of a bummer if you were a high refresh rate junkie and you wanted that to come to more affordable iPhones. In the Android world, it most definitely has. You can find 90 Hz or 120 Hz on $500 Androids now, and sometimes less. But Apple wants that differentiation. But the good news is, if you don't like the eye hole design because it looks kind of weird, and more recent reports are claiming that the iPhone on the Pro end is going to need to be a tiny bit taller, at least according to 9to5Mac, they needed to extend the height of the iPhone as to make the eye hole camera cutouts not cut in too much on content, which says a lot about how big those holes are actually going to be. And of course, because they're so big and it's really not that much different from having a notch in the first place, it's not going to allow for more information to be displayed up there. You're just kind of cramming pixels above your Face ID lenses. It's not like you can read something out there. It's not like you're getting your battery percentage back. But if you hate that design that Apple's going forward with, and if you think that's stupid, the iPhone 14 and 14 Max should still have typical notches, the same size notches we have on our iPhone 13s already. So if you were just in the market for a 6.7-inch iPhone with an OLED display and you don't care about those eye holes over there, then a notch option will still be available. It'll just come at the compromise, of course, of the camera. You know, the chassis will be aluminum instead of steel, but I like that decision personally. I think the steel on the iPhones is far too heavy and glossy. Earlier reports on the iPhone 14 were suggesting the Pros were going to switch to titanium, but everyone's gotten fairly quiet about that now, so I don't think it's going to happen. I think once again we're just going to have steel on the Pros and aluminum on the cheaper iPhones. Also, once again, no one is coming forward and saying Apple wants to push a portless iPhone this year, so once again, just expect Lightning across the board. Even though I've kind of accepted that Lightning sucks, but it's still going to be around for a long time, I'm at least hoping this year Apple could switch to like braided cables, like the new space gray keyboard and mouse that they just announced. Those come with black braided USB-C to Lightning cables, and if they included that with the Pro iPhones, oh, it would look super clean. Probably not going to be used by most people. They're just going to unbox it and use their crappy 5-watt Lightning cable charger that they have had for 5 years. But as far as we're aware, there's not a huge number of camera differences from the iPhone 13 and 13 mini to the 14 and 14 Max. The main reason I think the Max is going to sell pretty well, though, is because it is larger. That means it should probably have better battery life than the iPhone 13 did, and knowing that people can get better battery life, a bigger display, and sure, decent camera. It's just going to be ultra wide in the regular lens, but it's still going to have, you know, cinematic mode and 4K at 60 video recording and great portrait mode options. I think that will be like enough for some people, and the fact that it's under $1,000 starting should be pretty dang tempting. And Apple will probably spend a bit more time on the computational side of Pro iPhone photography and videography. We're not hearing too much about the lenses themselves being much different, but I imagine since the Pro iPhones are getting the A16 chip, they may be able to handle ProRes video recording at 4K at 60 perhaps instead of just 4K at 30. Maybe they get the 4K ProRes recording down to the 128 gig option, or to allow for better differentials between iPhone upgrades, maybe 256 gig becomes the standard for the Pro iPhones, and there's a little bit of a price hike, especially after the iPhone SE ended up costing $429. I wouldn't be shocked if Apple starts applying a bit more $29 at checkout. Like, if you want it unlocked, actually just a couple bucks more. We just need a little bit here. And hopefully Apple is able to switch to more power efficient 5G modems across the lineup, so there should be battery improvements across the board. I'd be fairly surprised if they started moving backwards again with battery physical capacity, since that was such a strong upgrade factor for the iPhone 13 series, and this year is not rumored to be a huge chassis redesign. So overall, you're getting some facelifts, you're getting some new size options that weren't there before. It's a sad year for the Mini, but overall, I think that those looking to upgrade are going to have decent options this year. I just happen to not be in that camp, because as much as I've read about the iPhone 14 lineup, none of the news or any of the rumors has sounded sounded convincing enough for me to want to upgrade my 13 Pro Max, which I'm very happy with. I'm excited to see if cinematic mode can record at 1080 at 60 or 4K at 30 this year. And yes, there's still things I want changed to the iPhone lineup, but if most of these rumors end up being at least remotely accurate, I'm very happy just holding on to my 120 hertz big battery 13 Pro Max for another year. I'll of course still review the iPhone 14, but I won't be keeping it long term. Are there any new updates or rumors that you guys are most interested in or want to hear more about? Feel free to let me know down in the comments. This is your Apple Shape here. I'll see you all in the next one.